We're talking Green Bay Packers on today's Peacock and Williamson with the great Peter Bukowski. What's going on with Jordan Love? Contract, the growth of this offense, but more importantly, the defensive side of the ball is where the gains are to be had, and predictions for the NFC North on today's Peacock and Williamson.
NFL analyst Brian Peacock and former NFL scout Matt Williamson bring you expert NFL analysis every day in less than 30 minutes. Get an inside look at the NFL on the field and in the front office with elite breakdowns to next-level analysis and in-depth information only for the real NFL fans. This is Peacock and Williamson, and it starts now.
Welcome to the Peacock and Williamson NFL Show. Peacock here solo. I'm not solo. I've got a fantastic guest with Williamson on vacation. The last day, by the way, of Matt Williamson's summer vacation before he shows up at Steelers training camp. And I'm sure we'll talk a lot about Justin Fields lighting it on fire at Steelers camp. But we're here to talk about Green Bay Packers camp today. I do want to thank all the everydayers out there and everybody who's subscribed up on YouTube and everywhere you listen to this podcast. Helps us out tremendously, so please hit that subscribe button right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode of Peacock and Williamson brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. So, Peter, appreciate you jumping on with me today. I want to talk about the quarterback. I want to talk about the defense, but selfishly, and I know a lot of folks that are listening to this show have fantasy drafts coming up. Who's the wide receiver one for the Green Bay Packers? Who are we drafting? And why is it Dontayvion Wicks?
So I would not put all your money in the Wicks basket, but that's just because I think trying to pick a Packers receiver this year in fantasy is going to be like trying to pick a Bill Belichick running back in fantasy. It is going to be so week to week. And Matt LaFleur likes it that way. Jordan Love likes it that way. They have the most egalitarian offense in football. You go back to last year, they did not have a 100-yard receiver until late in the season against the Minnesota Vikings. I think that was week 16 or 17. And it was Bo Melton, a guy that they had taken off the Seahawks practice squad. And then you have Romeo Doubs in the playoffs. He gets 100 yards. So that's, you notice I didn't say Christian Watson's name. You notice I didn't say Jayden Reed's name, but Jayden Reed set a Packers record in receiving. Romeo Doubs led the team in receiving touchdowns. So trying to figure this out all out from a fantasy standpoint is a little bit of a nightmare. I still think the highest upside play is Christian Watson, but I think the most reliable, the most consistent is going to be Jayden Reed. He is going to have weeks where he has 6 catches for 94 yards and 2 touchdowns. They get him involved in scheme touches. He's the one guy, him and Christian Watson are the one guy where they're going, we are calling this play to get you the ball. And that's, I think, the most important thing in any offense is the opportunities where they are going, we want you to get the ball. And so Jayden Reed, Christian Watson's your upside play. Jayden Reed is your down the middle. And then I think the secret's out on Dontayvion Wicks, but I think even at like ADP, that might be like, he could be, if Christian Watson gets hurt again, which is a decent bet, he could get 120 targets, no problem.
Yeah, that's the frustrating part with Wicks because I loved him. He was team Locked On 49ers. By the way, tune in to Locked On 49ers with myself, Eric Crocker, every day right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. And for your second listen, third listen, check out Locked On Packers, Locked On Sports today. Of course, Peacock and Williamson's your first listen. Everyone listening to this show knows that. The Dontayvion Wicks thing, he was team Locked On 49ers last year. And I was so pissed off when I saw him go to the Green Bay Packers. I know he's going to be good then because the Packers are so good at snagging those wide receivers. And he's a phenomenal player. But you're right, that outside rotation, Jayden Reed has that slot locked down. And this day and age in the NFL, you want the guy who's going to be lined up in the slot because they get peppered with targets. So that's an interesting angle with this one. The most confident in what his role will be is that slot receiver. Did Christian Watson get his quads the same size? Because that was the whole thing about his hamstrings, right? Did they figure that out?
Yeah, if you don't know this story, you're probably going, what is Peacock talking about? Well, he was having these recurring hamstring injuries, and they started his rookie season. Had never had these soft tissue injuries before in college or high school. And so they're like, okay, well, fast guys, like I remember Darnell Savage had a hamstring. He called it a fast guy injury. This is just guys who are really fast. Christian Watson, 4.36 at 6'4", 220. Like that is a lot of man moving really fast. And so you just go, okay, that happens. But then it happened again. And then it happened again. And they went into the University of Wisconsin at Madison, has these state-of-the-art facilities. He and Eric Stokes actually went in and got scanned and tested. And what they found was he had an asymmetry in his leg strength, not necessarily muscle, but strength. And it was based on an injury that he'd had repaired, but that there must have been some sort of biomechanical compensation he was doing where he just wasn't putting the same strain on one leg versus another. So he focused on, it was like a 20% asymmetry, which is a lot. Anything under 10 is considered a normal number. But 20% is a lot. I know that may not seem like a big difference, but it's a pretty big difference. And so he was able to get it down. He's feeling much better. And theoretically, that was the root of that issue. Now, does that mean he'll never get hurt again? Of course not. But it's pretty cool that they were able to use this sports science technology to figure out why he was having these issues and at least put together a treatment plan for it. Again, doesn't mean he won't get hurt again, but it's a step in the right direction toward protecting him in the future if this was what was causing these injuries.
Man, if he figured it out, then the answer is Christian Watson's the guy you want on your fantasy teams. Right?
When you go back and look at the middle of last year, he gets fully healthy against the Lions. First play of the game, play action, shot play, monster gain. And then it was his slot fade touchdown that sealed that game. The next week, 2 touchdowns against the Kansas City Chiefs, the 2 best wins that they had all season last year, the 2 best teams that they played and beat, the NFC runner-up and the Super Bowl champs. Christian Watson was the best receiver in that game, period. And I think that is pretty telling. But at the same time, this is an offense that's going to get the ball to the open receiver, and that's what you love about Jordan Love. He's not going to get locked in on one guy or locked on one guy. He is going to find the open guy more often than not. It's a lot like Brock Purdy in San Francisco. You don't have to feed one guy, and that makes it really, as you know, really, really hard to defend.
A lot of people were scratching their heads with the Packers' decision to go from Aaron Jones to Josh Jacobs. And I was just looking up some photos for the thumbnail of this podcast and seeing Josh Jacobs and Green Bay Packers number 8 did look a little bit weird, but that happened a lot. Weird, yeah. It's guys changing colors, especially those Packers colors, which we actually use here on this podcast. Sometimes it looks even more different when you go from something like the Raiders to the Packers uniform. What's the early returns there, and what's the idea of going from one really good running back to another?
Yeah, I think it's honestly, it's weirder obviously it's weirder for me, but I think it is weirder to see Aaron Jones in purple and white. Just because you're just like, what is happening? But so Packer fans should be used to seeing their former glory stars in Minnesota purple or in Chicago Bears blue. That's just what those teams do. But the plan for Jacobs is to be used a lot like Aaron Jones, where you're going to see him be a part of the receiving game. He wants to prove that he's a better receiver than he was allowed to be in Vegas. I believe he's 2 games away from setting a record for most consecutive games played with a catch without a touchdown catch. They'd like to change that. And I think if you go back to his scouting report at Alabama, and I know that was a long time ago now, his ability to win down the field was drawing comparisons to Alvin Kamara. Now, he's not as explosive as Alvin Kamara, but his ability to say, hey, you can run an actual route with him. Like a wheel route with Josh Jacobs is not materially different from a wheel route for a tight end, let's say, in terms of the quality of the route and his likeliness to catch it. Because this is the dirty little secret about running backs, not named Christian McCaffrey. They can get open running these routes, but then they usually do not catch the ball at a rate anywhere near commensurate with their pass catching counterparts. Like a tight end or receiver is just so much more likely to make the catch than a running back is. And Josh Jacobs has really, really good hands. So Matt LaFleur, you go back to 2019, like that Chiefs game in that season, Aaron Jones was the passing game. Like he scored on a sluggo, almost scored on another one. And then on 3rd and medium with the game on the line, they put Aaron Jones in the slot. He ran a little out route against the linebacker. Rodgers threw it to him, iced the game. They are willing to do that if they find a matchup that they think is worth it. So I think you're going to see Josh Jacobs involved in the passing game as well here, which, getting back to your fantasy question, especially in PPR, is really, really valuable. And the last piece of this, Brian, is you lose the heart and soul of your locker room. Someone like Aaron Jones, who was a tremendous leader in that locker room, in the community, a beloved figure. But you replace him with someone who was the heart and soul of the Vegas team and their locker room. And I remember I talked to Q about it. Our guy Q, like he was like, he is everything to this team. And it is rare that you get to do a 1-for-1 replacement in that way.
All right, I want to talk defense, and we got to talk Jordan Love, what's going on with the contract, what to expect from him over, based on the ups and downs of his career. As he arrived, is it just money in the bank now that he's going to be a star in the NFL? We'll get to all those questions next. Today's episode of Peacock and Williamson is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. It's the formula for winning championships. It's also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your parts are guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car into the MVP and bring home that W. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. That's ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. All right. Talk to me about Jordan Love. I know you've had some nice back and forth with fans, namely 49ers fans, about how good Jordan Love is, if he's better than Brock Purdy, if he's better than Tua, if he's better than Dak, if he's going to be the best quarterback in the division. I know there's some really strong rivalries there in the NFC North. I need your predictions on that as well before I let you go. Who is Jordan Love, and how much is he going to get paid? When is he going to get paid?
Okay, let's start with the amount. A lot. And I have been saying for weeks he is going to break the record for the highest paid player. I don't know that he's going to get the percentage of salary cap that Joe Burrow got. I think on this cap, that would be $58 million or thereabouts, 58 and change. Trevor Lawrence got 55. So if you do the percentage of cap thing, it's not the same as Joe Burrow's 55 when the cap was a little bit less. I think you're going to see more than 55. Jory Epstein from Yahoo reporting that the expectation is they're going to get at least the Trevor Lawrence deal, if not more. And you're hearing from Adam Schefter, what I've heard all along is the Love camp they want to be the highest paid player, not because they just want to be the highest paid player. They think Jordan Love deserves it. And the question that you're going to get, Brian, and I understand this, not just from 49ers fans, but from any observer, even an impassionate observer, or a dispassionate observer, is, it was only half a season, right? Except that half a season was so good where he was first or second in just about every statistical category, qualitative and quantitative, that he ended the season top 5 in EPA per dropback and top 10 in success rate and Pro Football Focus grade and all of the different metrics we like to look at. So you can say, okay, well, it was really only this half a good season, but it wasn't. It was half an incredible season that if you extrapolate out, you're talking about like Aaron Rodgers near MVP numbers. I think if you extrapolate his second half stats, it's something like 35 touchdowns and 7 interceptions or 37. Yeah, it's 37 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, and over 4,000 yards. That would be a really, really good season for anybody. As it is, he was second in the league in touchdowns. And so when you look at what he can be, when in year one, he's a top 5 productive, efficient quarterback with the youngest group of receivers ever, an offensive line that lost their all-pro left tackle in week 1, first year starter at right tackle. You have your running back, your Pro Bowl running back was hurt most of the year. And Christian Watson, who was supposed to be your wide receiver 1, was also hurt most of the year. Both of them played less than 50% of snaps on the season. And you still put together this kind of year. It's a credit to Matt LaFleur, one, and it is a credit to Jordan Love, who I think, and I heard someone say this on a podcast recently about both Jordan Love and CJ Stroud, and I thought it was a perfect encapsulation of who they can be. Projecting them to be better than Patrick Mahomes is unfair to them and unfair to Patrick Mahomes. But could they be the better quarterback in a season? Could they steal an MVP from Patrick Mahomes in a year like he had last year, for example, when Lamar Jackson steals the MVP? I think absolutely yes. And I think he can be one of the 3 to 5 best quarterbacks in football. And if you think that's true, then he deserves the Trevor Lawrence plus deal. He deserves the Joe Burrow deal because he's that caliber of quarterback. And just to add on, because I think this stuff matters, ask Kyler Murray. The team, the organization, the coaches love him. Michael Pratt just gave a really great interview to my friend Matty Hudak, who covers Tulane for Sports Illustrated, where he was like, that room has made me better. I'll be on the field and Jordan will ask a question. Hey, in this protection, who's hot if the mic comes? Those kinds of things where like it's just out of the blue, not because anyone asked him to do that. He's just trying to make everyone else better. And almost immediately, his teammates said, we got this guy. And I think that stuff matters too, where like you see the hesitancy in Miami with Tua. Does he command the same sort of respect in that locker room that Jordan Love does? And if he did, would their feeling about him be different? I think that stuff, we underrate that stuff because the people in the building experience that every day. And when you are a superlative in one of those fields, it really matters. We're like, if you're just like a B leader, we're not going to talk about it. It's fine. But like, if you're an A plus, that stuff matters. And it matters in Green Bay.
Yeah, that's the kind of stuff where you're elevating guys. And clearly we're learning a lesson. It's still pretty important to be patient at the quarterback position. And we are not these days at that spot in the NFL. And it's a good thing for Jordan Love to be getting paid based on half of a regular season and not the second half of a playoff game in January. Let's talk defense, Peter. Jeff Hafley, what's his scheme going to look like, and why is it going to be better than what we've seen in recent history with the Green Bay Packers, with all these first rounders all over the place on that defensive side of the ball?
You know what's so cool about this, Brian, is the Packers for too long have been followers on defense, where you have Mike McCarthy, who's an offensive coach, and you're just sort of chasing the tail end of whatever the defensive trend is. So he's got Dom Capers. That works for a little bit. And that's toward the end of the Pittsburgh fire zone. Hey, everyone is trying to replicate this, and Dom Capers crushes it for like 3 seasons, and then it's over. Because they're not ahead of the trend. If there's one thing that I think separates Sean McVay and Kyle Shanahan from Matt LaFleur, it is their ability to hire assistants that Matt LaFleur has not quite matched. Joe Barry was chasing the Brandon Staley, Vic Fangio scheme that the 49ers were on, 15 years ago with Vic Fangio, like forever ago. It's maybe not 15, 10 at least. So Jeff Hafley, even though he's a former 49ers coach, is not going to play like the current 49ers. He played in college football more cover 1 and cover 3, more single high safety than any program in college football. Everyone wants to live in this quarters world to stop the spreads and the RPO offenses. And he's just like, you know what we're going to do? Not that. We're going to pre and post snap disguise. We're going to blitz the daylights out of you on 3rd down and in the red zone. He brings as much cover 0 as anyone in college football. And he wants to play press man coverage. He plays defense the way that every fan wants their defense to play. He is on Madden clicking engage 8 every time. And that's how I play Madden on defense, right?
No doubt, yeah.
You just want to create the havoc. And that's the piece. Like you see this in San Francisco, where those defensive linemen are there to create chaos. Just get upfield and muck things up. And that can give what has been, sort of underwhelming back-end talent at times in San Francisco, the opportunities to be great. Because when you create pressure and you press, now you've thrown off the timing and you don't have to cover as long. You don't have to be as fluid. You can just have these big physical guys on the outside who are pressing receivers, being physical in man-to-man coverage, and let your defensive front go hunt. So they have one of the best defensive fronts in the league. Rashawn Gary, Preston Smith, Kenny Clark, Devontae Wyatt, Carl Brooks is a name to look out for. Certainly former day 3 pick who really came on as a pass rusher. They're just going to get upfield. And Rashawn Gary is going to get double-digit sacks this year. This is going to be his best sack year of his career. And then on the outside, these guys are born to play man coverage. Eric Stokes at Georgia, press man corner. Carrington Valentine, Kentucky, press man corner. Jair Alexander can do anything you need him to do. So you have those 3 guys on the outside, some combination of them on the outside with Keyshawn Nixon in the slot. You bring in Xavier McKinney. to be that post safety. You draft Javon Bullard to be his running mate, and then you bring in some insurance on day 3, Evan Williams, not the whiskey, the player from the safety from Oregon. And Edrin Cooper, the linebacker, I think is going to play next to Quay Walker in their nickel. And this is going to be the most athletic, the most versatile, the fastest, most aggressive defense we've seen in Green Bay since Fritz Schirmer. Like I think it's going to be really fun to watch, even if it doesn't always work, because they're trying something different. They're doing something that no one else in the league is trying to do. And that could blow up in their faces, but I love it. I love that they're saying, you know what? Let's try something else. Let's try to play a little bit more like the Chiefs. Let's try and play at times a little bit more like the Ravens and see if we can create a little extra chaos.
All right, last one before we go, Peter. And again, appreciate you jumping on the show with us. Packers, how do they finish in the North? How do they finish in the NFC in 2024? Because we know it's not just the division they're gunning for this year.
That's the cool thing, right? Is we're not just talking about the NFC North. Even if they are a wild card, they have to believe that they can beat anybody. They were one field goal away from overtime in San Francisco, one stop away from the NFC Championship game, depending on how you want to look at it. Maybe one Jordan Love interception away. If you're a 49ers fan, certainly. But I think they are going to win the NFC North. I know everyone is very high on Detroit, and I understand that. I think the Packers have more answers for the ways that they were weak last year than the Lions do. I don't think the Lions got a secondary pass rusher. That scares me. I don't believe in the secondary pass catchers for the Detroit Lions. And those were 2 of the 3 places they needed to improve the most. So I think the Packers win the North. And I think they are probably the second best team in the NFC behind the 49ers, unless the 49ers have to do something between now and the start of the season with one of these receivers. I have said that on my show all along. And I know you don't think it will happen, but if one of those guys, I had someone suggest to me, a league source the other day suggested to me, well, what if they just traded Debo so they could pay Brandon Ayuk? And I thought, oh, that's interesting. But if that happens, then I think there is a clear tier that the 49ers fall back into with Green Bay and Detroit. Right now, San Francisco's up here in their own tier with Green Bay and Detroit behind them. I think if one of those skill players has to get shipped out, then I think that's enough. I think it's close enough that they fall back into that tier with Green Bay and Detroit. They'd still be the favorites in that tier, but that's how I see the NFC right now. I'm not buying Philly. I don't buy anyone in the NFC South. And the one wild card for me is the Rams. If that defense can take a little bit of a step forward, I think that offense can be so scary. I'm really excited to see them beat the 49ers twice, and then we'll see.
Hard to take a step forward, losing Aaron Donald too. So
yeah, it is. It is.
Bears, not yet.
It's just too soon. Like with a rookie quarterback, can he recreate what CJ Stroud did? It's possible, right? I mean, he's as talented as CJ Stroud, if not more. We see the clips already of the off-platform throws and the craziness that he's making. He's going to have 2 or 3 games this year where we just go, where did this guy come from? And I think there are going to be a couple games this year where we just go, oh, so this is just not it. Like he's going to throw 3 interceptions in a game, trying to make 6 throws across his body. Yeah. And it's going to be great if you're a Bears fan, because you're just like, that's what Brett Favre was for Packers.
Right. I'm just going to say that.
He's either going to win the game for you, or he's going to throw 5 interceptions trying. And that's what you want as a quarterback. That was like, I think his sort of middle outcome is Jay Cutler. And like, I think Bears fans, frankly, would take that. Like Jay Cutler took them to an NFC Championship game. And so like that would be really fun too. They're a year away, at least. We'll see.
Yeah. And Vikings probably a couple years away. That is Peter Bukowski at Peter_Bukowski. Find him daily. Locked On Packers, Locked On Sports today. Peter, always a pleasure. Appreciate you.
Thanks, Brian.
My predictions up next for the NFC North, and a little bit more on the Packers and how this thing might start to look in the NFC at the top next. Today's episode of Peacock and Williamson brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. Because you don't want to hire just anybody, right? So you want to go to LinkedIn, where you can find literally, we're talking 1 billion users at LinkedIn. And LinkedIn isn't just a job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else. Even those who aren't actively searching for a new job might be open to the perfect role, your role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours at LinkedIn. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right. Thanks again to Peter Bukowski for joining me talking about the Packers. Make sure you check out Locked On Sports Today. You can start finding the 24/7 stream, by the way, of Locked On Sports Today that not only features Peter, but myself and Matt and every biggest story in the league. You can find it on Fubo now. We've got our own app coming on smart TVs, 24/7, obviously on streaming on YouTube as well. So make sure you check out Locked On Sports Today for your second listen here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Peter brought up something interesting about trading Debo. That's a 2025. So here's my prediction for the 49ers, just since we're talking about the top of the NFC, which the 49ers currently are number one, and they're going to try to defend that this year. And I think the Packers and Lions are even stronger than they were last year. And there might be some other contenders there at the top of the NFC. This is, I think, the plan, and we'll see if the 49ers can get it done with Ayuk. If Ayuk and the Niners can't get it done, maybe it'll change things. But I think it's a 2025 offseason trade, whether it's an Ayuk tag and trade, which I think is plan B. Plan A, I think, is to trade Debo in the 2025 offseason. And by the way, Debo, phenomenal shape, wearing number one, looking good at 49ers camp. Draft him in your fantasy leagues, and you can get a little discount on him versus what Debo could be. I think he might have one of those 2021 seasons on tap or something similar, even though there's a lot of mouths to feed in San Francisco. And I think the future plan is for Christian McCaffrey then in 2025 and beyond. Keep the wear and tear off his tires a little bit, transition him even into a wide back sort of a role, and really even feature him more as a receiver than he's already featured. That, I think, is the plan for the 49ers. And then you have the younger Brandon Ayuk, who's the better pure wide receiver and route runner on the intermediate level, where Kyle loves to call plays. Brock Purdy throws the ball. Then you got Ricky Pearsall coming in, replacing Debo as the second starting wide receiver. That's the plan for the 49ers. I think that's a 2025 plan and a new look team going forward after they try to really go all in for this Super Bowl window. Detroit Lions are going all in for this Super Bowl window, as are the Green Bay Packers, and that is going to be a knockdown, drag-out fight in the NFC North, and I can't wait to see how that turns out. And to be honest with you, and I didn't want to tell Peter this while he was on because we have a nice little rivalry going, but I kind of want to pick the Packers in the North because of what that defense could be, and I think if Jeff Hafley's the right guy and how Peter laid out what that defense could look like, obviously, just by being another year older and another year more developed in the offense, you're not going to get worse at running back with Josh Jacobs. I like a lot of the pieces on the offensive line as long as that continues to come together. Zach Tom could start at right tackle. He could start at left tackle. He could start at center. Elton Jenkins could start at left tackle or left guard. They've got a lot of versatile pieces on the offensive line. They really know how to draft and develop and coach those guys up on the offensive line. And, they're 4 deep at wide receiver. They could trade one of those guys away and still be rock solid at wide receiver and deep. And so just a year older with all those young receivers, a year older and more developed for Jordan Love, who clearly has the locker room, clearly has the trust, and it's his team now. And so I've got big expectations, and I think they'll be better than the Lions at quarterback. If Love is truly that guy and continues on that path and as good as Jared Goff, and sometimes Jared Goff doesn't get the credit for how good he has played in recent history, I would still take Jordan Love and the Packers there. And I think they have more varied weapons on offense. And I think they potentially have more talent on defense if it can all come together. They just have more guys there, even though the Lions are really good. But I think it's Packers by a nose for me in the North if all goes well for both sides. I think there's maybe more variance in what the Packers are. I think we really know how the Lions play, what they are going to be. So I kind of think they have a higher floor maybe than the Packers, but I think the Packers do have a higher ceiling in the NFC North this year. And I do think it's clearly a 3-team race in the NFC with the 49ers, the Packers, and the Detroit Lions. And to be honest with you, I think the Cowboys, they haven't gotten better, and they haven't proven they can do anything in January. So almost the beginnings of a transitional year for the Cowboys. I can't wait to see if they sign Dak or if they let him hit free agency and see what that might look like. Jerry Jones talking about how the Dallas Cowboys are all in for this year, and he wouldn't really talk about the future. So he was kind of hinting that maybe somebody's not going to get paid there, and they're more worried about this year, which tells me they're going to play hardball with the CeeDee Lamb and especially the Dak Prescott contracts. And I really feel like it's going in a direction of Lamb gets paid now, Parsons gets paid next year, and Dak hits free agency. And then who knows? I mean, someone might offer him a crazy number. We haven't seen a quarterback as good as Dak hit unrestricted free agency. He cannot be tagged by the Dallas Cowboys. That's going to be a fascinating one. And they're not better than they were. So I don't know why you would expect the Cowboys are going to be better than a first-round exit this season. And the Philadelphia Eagles are the wild card because they could be the best team in the NFC. They could be even out of the playoffs. There's some weird vibes with the Philadelphia Eagles. I don't think they're going to be out of the playoffs, but I don't think I would expect them to be the team that we saw as the 1 seed for about a year and a half in the NFC. Something really worried me about what I saw with that team at the end of last year. I think Fangio helps on defense. They got 2 new offensive coordinators. It tells me they're not really sure what's going on there. I would probably put them 4 in the NFC after the other 3. And I feel pretty solid about the other 3 teams. And I guess the Packers with that upside downside thing that I talked about, I think the Philadelphia Eagles are similar to that. Like I shouldn't be shocked if the Eagles are back to the 1 seed again this year, but right now I'd probably park them 4th. And I guess I should include them in a top 4, like a clear top 4 in the NFC with the Philadelphia Eagles. And, obviously there's some other teams that could make some noise, but it's a top heavy conference. And who's that extra team? Like the Cowboy or the Bears are a year away. The Vikings are completely, they should have started rebuilding a couple of years ago. The Giants, I don't have much hope for them taking a huge leap. They should have started rebuilding and figuring out they should have a new quarterback already. They're kind of just plodding along with the Daniel Jones era. I'm not sure what they're doing. Like I mentioned with Peter, how do the Rams get better losing a generational talent on the defensive side of the ball? They're going to have to be carried on the offense. They're going to have to get a lot right with the rest of the development on the defensive side of the ball. So that's a tough one for me to say that they could go win the West over a healthy 49ers team right now. The Seahawks are interesting, but transitional with a new coach. They're solid in a lot of places, but can you project that they're going to be more than a wild card team? It's hard for me to project that for them. The Bucks and pretty much everybody in the South, I have no idea what to expect about that division. But again, they're like kind of wild card level teams, and one of those wild card level teams is going to win the division and not be a wild card. But I can't see more than one team out of the South making it. But someone's going to make that leap that we don't expect. Who's it going to be? I don't know. We will find out. Again, thanks to Peter. Matt Williamson back with me on Monday. Hope he had a fantastic vacation. Hope you all enjoyed the week's podcasts here. There's only a few days here with me solo, but I had a lot of fun with it. And I hope you did too. Make sure you subscribed on YouTube and everywhere you listen to this podcast. And for your second listen, check out one of the over 200 podcasts we have here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Matt and I back Monday right here. Peacock and Williamson.